Okay, I hope everyone is doing well. This is the beginning of Lab 5. We will have 3 mini sections, and by the time we're done, we will have learned how to obtain good hydrology data, how to analyze it, export it for our own needs, symbolize it, and then finally export a layout of our map. So, before we open up the software, and this is very important, even if you're not on school computers, it's important that you do this, in my opinion, but especially if you're on school computers. Navigate to your project folder, okay? And if you don't see a green check mark here, and this might be the case if you're in the computer labs, right click and choose always keep on this device. And then OneDrive will start syncing fairly quickly. Okay, now double click on your project, and once all of your status symbols have this nice green circle with a white check mark in it, then we are good to go. Because what this means is that your data, which was in the cloud, now has downloaded to the C drive of the computer you're working on, and the software can work with that. It can't work with your data when it's in the cloud. Okay, so once that's done, let's double click on this. Okay, so this is where we left off last week, and we have our elevation map and our elevation layout. So we don't need these fellas anymore, so we're going to close out of them. Then we're going to go over to maps, and we're going to make a copy of our base. So just do a Control C and a Control V. Do a Control C and then come up here and do a Control V. Okay, you need to just select on that. Okay, immediately when you make a new map or a layout, you want to rename it so things don't get messy. All right, now let's do the same thing in layouts. We're going to go to the base, Control C, come up here to layouts and a Control V. Oops. And then we will name this one as well. Okay. Now, let's open both of these up. Just double click. Okay, great. Now, I want to just double check, and this is a good idea. Whenever you go out looking for data for a specific purpose, you want to know the scale of your map, okay? So I'm going to turn off that hill shade actually. And so let me just double click on the map base again, come here, and it's 1 to 1,000,000, okay? And that's important because certain data sets are designed for maps that are zoomed in, okay? And it's kind of confusing because they're called large scale maps. And it's kind of like, well, your features, like this, county is large. I mean, that's the way I kind of think of it, because maps that cover a huge distance like this one does are called small scale maps, okay? So you don't want to get a data set that is made for a small scale map, which would be like a 1 to 24,000, when you're working at a map scale of 1 to 1,000,000, okay? So just an important thing to keep in mind when you go out and get your data. Now, let's head over to the web, okay? You'll find this link on Blackboard if you don't have it bookmarked, okay? And let me start where you're starting. So we'll just do this all together. Okay. So we don't need to zoom in anywhere because we're going to get these small scale data sets. All right. So let's click this, and we don't need boundaries. We're looking for hydrography. Okay. And I went through a lot of different hoops to figure out why nothing would come up, but this is how you can get the set, the data set that we need. Okay, so just click on these parameters, then scroll back to the top and choose search products. Okay, and then this is the product we're going to get. Now it's important, especially as you're getting more advanced in the software, it's important that you understand what it is you're downloading before you just download a massive data set like this, okay? So first off, it says that this is really for maps that are at that 1 to 1 million scale or larger. So 1 to 2 million would be fine. So this is going to work perfect for us, okay? It also tells you when it was published, okay? And several other things that when you get deeper into the software, you'll want to know about. So this is simply called metadata. Meta means about, and so it's data about data. Like when you take a picture with your cell phone, the data is really the millions of pixels you just created by clicking on that button to take the picture. But Apple, Google, these other companies, they also include data about all of those pixels, which is incredibly useful. They include the date, the time it was taken, the location, okay, and the camera that you used, and if you have a good camera, it'll have 24 different parameters of what was going on with the settings of your camera. So that kind of information is extremely valuable, and that's what this is here. So just keep that in mind down the road. You want to know again what your product is. Okay, so let's all click download. Okay, and then once you have the zipped file downloaded, we'll meet you over in your downloads folder. Now this is a big data set, so it's going to take a bit. Okay, so back in our downloads folder, what I'd like to do is just extract it here. It looks like, yeah, it's a geodatabase, okay, but I want to open this up. Okay, so this is all that metadata. These are just text files, okay, but again, they're important to keep. And this is our geodatabase, okay? This is where all of the features and the information about those features is contained. All right, so let's hold down, but before we bring this into our project, I'd like us all to do this with OneDrive, because we're going to be doing some geoprocessing, and OneDrive can have an issue syncing your files when it's when we're geoprocessing. Okay, so let's come on in here. See, there's already some issues about what I've downloaded, maybe in other folders. And what we're going to do is, and nothing's wrong here, okay, don't worry about any of that, but we just want to pause it, okay, so that there's no issues when we're working. Now, what's incredibly important though is when we're done and we save all of our work and we close out of the program, we need to come back in here, resume syncing, and make sure that all of our work is safely uploaded in the cloud. So to give you an analogy, when you resume sync, it's like you're putting a jump drive into your computer and you're saving your project, okay? But the nice thing is here is your project's being saved in the cloud, so you don't have to worry about losing your jump drive, which used to happen all the time, or your hard drive fell and broke, okay? So just keep that in mind. We have to resume syncing before you log out of a computer. All right, now, okay, so now that that's paused, okay, let's select everybody here and do a Control X, and let's go into our project folder. Okay, and we're going to go into hydrography, and then just a Control V to paste. Okay, let's close out of that, those two. Okay, so back here, we are in our layout, and while we're here, let's change the map that our map frame is referencing. So let's double click on our map frame, and the first thing I want us to do, I'm going to start calling the map frame just what it is, map frame, okay? Because we can swap out the map that is contained within it, and then the name up here doesn't confuse us. And so instead of the base, we want it to reference, I'm sorry, not elevation, hydrology, of course. Okay, so there we go, and let me come over here, and looks like it kicked my rotation out, and that should be at 3. Okay, so let me do a Control S. Okay, I'm going to click off here to deselect that. And now what we're going to do is, let's come over, sorry about that. Let's come over to hydrology, okay, the map, and we're going to go to the catalog, okay, and let's start with the water bodies. All right, so just drag and drop that over, and it looks like these really include mostly, you know, Texas doesn't have a lot of water bodies at all. So these are all reservoirs. You can see there's a stream coming down, and then all of these sudden abrupt endings are where dams are located, and then this reservoir forms behind the dam. Okay, so I always open an attribute table when I am working with a new feature class, because I want to see what data is associated with the features. So just right click and go to attribute table. Okay, so this has under feature, it has a number of different features here, okay? Swamps and marshes, lakes, okay? So let's see if we can symbolize all of these features differently, and we certainly can do that, all right? So right click and go to symbology. Now, instead of doing a single symbol for all the different features, we're going to choose unique values, okay? And we're going to use this field called feature to do that, okay? So let's come here and choose field. It might be F code. Let's see if that's it. Oh, there it is. It's right above F code. Okay, so it's feature, and then here are all the features that came in, and so you can see your water bodies have changed color based on what type of body of water they are. Let's turn off our boundaries so that the cities don't confuse us. We can close out of the attribute table, okay? And what we want to do now is under boundaries, actually, let's turn this on, but just turn off the U.S. national border and the towns and cities. And then let's zoom by right-clicking to the Yano. Okay, so you right-click on that, just choose zoom to layer. Okay, now we know our scale is 1 to 1,000,000, so let's set that as a reference scale in here, and that's already been done. Okay, great. That's something I always like doing. Okay, so let's go back to symbology, okay, and we're going to need to select this layer again. Now, obviously, these rainbow bright colors are really awful, okay? So we're going to change those up. But first, let's take a look. We're going to want swamp and marsh to be the same. I guess that would be on its own. Let's start with that one. So just click on swamp and marsh, okay? And let's pick a color. We're going to keep this simple. I'm not even sure we have any of these in our AOI. So we're just going to choose, you know, some swampy color like this, and just take off this outline color. Okay, now don't click gallery. You need to go back to the primary symbology pane, okay? And now let's do streams. So we're gonna click on streams, and we're gonna choose this Larkspur blue, okay? And we're gonna do the same thing for the outline so it has a little bit of punch. Okay, so that's Larkspur blue. Now I wanna do that with several other features, but I don't wanna have to go through all this trouble over and over again. So let's come up here to this hamburger icon and just simply choose Save Symbol to Style, okay? And we're gonna call this Water Bodies in Larkspur. Okay, and it should default to your favorites, and just click OK. Okay, now we can go back to the symbology pane, and let's do the reservoirs the exact same way. So now we can go to the gallery, and you should have your water bodies and Larkspur here. You could just click on that. And let's do that. We're not going to need to do let's do it with lakes. Okay, water bodies, come back. And then canals, and let's just do it with this guy. Lake intermittent. Okay, now everybody else, I want them to be empty. Okay, so we're actually going to create an empty style. Okay, so and this comes in handy quite a bit, and so we're going to save it as well. So come here and choose no color, and then under outline color choose no color, and then take that down just to be on the safe side. Then do the same thing, hamburger, save symbol to style, and just call this empty, okay, and it'll save to your favorites. All right, now we'll go back here and we'll just empty these on out. So go to the gallery. You know what, for that lake dry, why don't we give it some kind of beige color? So something simple. I don't know if you have this airport, that'll work fine. And then let's go back here, and all other values should be empty as well. Okay. Now let's do a Control S. Okay, and now let's pop in, let's go to catalog, and now let's bring in our streams. Okay, great. I was hoping we'd have some more hydrology. No, I've done this. Okay, now the problem with streams that are polylines and not polygons, you know, these should actually be called streams and rivers, is if you're going to get really high, and you can get really high quality hydrography data on rivers and streams, they're supposed to be in this polygon format, because as I said, rivers and streams are constantly changing, and you know, there's parts of them that expand greatly and then contract. They have islands in them, and you can't represent any of that with a line. However, our map is at 1 to 1,000,000 scale, so we don't need that hyper detail, but we still want to differentiate between, you know, what should be fairly large rivers as opposed to fairly faint streams. So here's how we're going to do that. Let's right click on our feature class. Let's go to attribute table, and let's see how what attributes these have. Okay, and they do have codes. Not really sure what some of that means, but what I think would be helpful is to symbolize them based on their length in miles. So let's see how that'll work. So let's close out of here. We're going to right click and choose symbology. And again, we're on single symbol symbology. And we want to change that to graduated symbols. Okay, so see the icon here, how some are thin and some are fat? That's what we're looking for. Okay, so let's choose this fella, and you can see immediately, just using this field of stream ID, you know, some are fat and some are thin. Okay, and that might be the better way to symbolize these. Okay, let's change the template first, and we'll do that larkspur color so we have a uniform palette. We're going to click that. Okay, and let's turn off our water bodies just so we don't confuse ourselves. So there's a little bit of differentiation, but not much, and it's kind of clumsy in certain places. Okay, so let's go back to the primary page, and let's try out what I was thinking about with length in miles. Okay, boom. That looks okay, but I don't want to have all of these choppy. Well, see, that's kind of showing us how these streams modulate in certain areas. This is how streams would look if they were polygons. It would just look a lot better. Okay, so I think we can leave that alone for now. Let's do a control save. Okay, and let's come over to our layout real quick. Let's turn on our water bodies, and I'm going to turn off that. Now I'm going to roll up my boundaries and put the boundaries holding down the left mouse button on the top, and then I am going to select my stream, hold down control and select water body if you need to skip something, and then right click, and I'm going to choose group, and I'm going to click on this and just call it hydrology. That way we have a nice tidy work area. okay? And then I'm gonna save it again, and that will be the end of this first mini section. We're making pretty good progress, and I think we can finish it out in the next one. So I'll see you then.